There is no rite that connects with anything other than a set of behaviors, but connects with that key word. The key word is the myth. The ritual makes the link between the individual and the collective and allows the individual, the human being, to remember that it belongs to humanity. It is a ritual, but it is an art because it is born from an intuitive part of you that allows you to connect with what you already are. We must undoubtedly seek our own voice. We must always look inward and recognize ourselves and see what is most suited to our personality. The ritual help us to evolve internally. They help us to pass the stage. They help us to be able to process in our level of maturation. I was very aware of the power that the ritual had over the subconscious of the human being. So one day I said, why not take the ritual to the realm of the purely artistic, and that each person from his own way applied it to manage his life. That's how the ritual art was born. It takes you from the insane to the healthy. That is my experience basically with the ritual art. The ritual art is like the moment I need to speak to me. It is an inner language in which things arise from nothing or something that has happened to me. I have created the ritual art thinking about the freedom of the human being and how we could manage to develop our freedom, our capacities, our merit to live a life full of blessings, of possibilities, without relying on external beliefs, dogmas, cosmovisions, structures that gave us how things had to be, how it had to be, what we had to do, because I realized that it is a structure that goes very well when we are a child. But when you are an adult, you need to decide for yourself and even make mistakes. The ritual art is a place where one can explore without fear and experience what he wants to live. After all, the workshop is like a tatami, like a church. It is a sacred ground where I practice what I want to take to my daily life. And the power of art precisely allows you to explore without so much danger as it happens in everyday life, where a decision can really change your life.
Bueno, desde la psicología, básicamente
Psychology basically talks about pathological rituals and daily rituals, so to speak. Then there are also habits that can be converted into a ritual, and then there are superstitions. The pathological rituals arise when there is a psychological pressure, emotional level that is not given a healthy output. A normal output, an emotion that is not expressing, then creates an internal pressure. This pressure at the unconscious level is like a pushing to be resolved. What happens is that it does not find the way out and is diverted to another site. And we could be talking about compulsive rituals, for example, that there are people who need to do a series of repetitive behaviors in order to release the burden of stress they suffer.
Para poder liberar una carga de estrés que sufren.
The origin of this word is very difficult to define. It is usually said that the ritual whose first meaning would be a posture, an attitude, a certain attitude, I believe that there is actually a consecration of the attitude in ritual, a sacralization of an attitude, of the posture. But if we go further with this word, in the specific case of the Indo-European language, we are going to go back to the root of the letter R and the letter T, and too often to understand the meaning of a word, we must go to the root of the consonant in the R and the T. We go to find the idea of a movement, once again a dynamic, a startup of something that rolls, rotates, spoke of the wheel of fortune of the old Marcel Tarot, but we can also talk about the wheel of life and also of this body posture that consists in retaking each time a circular dynamics, a cycle, but also a circular movement. A circular movement is one of the archaic movement of men. The copulation, for example, that is one of the first reflexes of the human being, is a circle. It becomes a circle, and through this circle repeating the original act, the act of fertilization. We fertilize something else, reproducing, reactivating at every moment the energy of the cycle, of the circle. We revive the rhythm of the cosmos and also the cycle of time.
De fécondation, eh bien, on féconde autre chose. À chaque instant, en reproduisant, en réactivant l'énergie du cycle, du cercle, on fait revivre le rythme du cosmos et aussi le cycle du temps.
The ritual is very linked to time. There is a time of ritual. There is a temporarily of ritual. Simultaneously through a ritual we get out of habit. I think that we suffer the most is habit. We repeat, and we repeat the same thing every day. Every Sunday we will do this action. We will eat some food, and it is finally extremely irritating.
Faire cette action où on va manger un certain plat, voilà, et c'est extrêmement, finalement, c'est extrêmement.
This is terrible. Today is Sunday, and we are going to eat spaghetti like every Sunday. No. Today is Sunday, and we are going to eat spaghetti. It is something that unites us. That is, the habit has become a ritual, and when we transform our habits into ritual is when we get out of the mediocrity of the human condition, and we return to grant the sacred to our acts, to our gestures, to our postures, whereas nowadays the opposite happens. We have rituals that we do not understand since they have lost their sacred character and become banalities, automatisms, which have once again become habits. There is a movement to get out of the habit, to go to the ritual, taking care that the ritual does not lead us to relapse again in the habit.
Ne nous amène pas à retomber dans l'habitude.
Generate ritual art by which what we manage to build is not only a result limited to everyday life, but that generates an inner journey in us. We need art to do something sublime, and sublime means file, make a hole or a hollowing in which to enter the most subconscious to the most basic of human being. There we connect with our most basic force, masculine emitting forces, feminine receiving forces. We emit so that the universe receives what we want. This is learning to do. There, the work forces us to reach something else, to a state of consciousness that at first we did not have. That state of consciousness is sublime. which means sublime, get to the top by fighting the most basic, most subconscious obstacle. The ritual itself has to do with the person individually. Each of us has a vocabulary, a personality that is manifested through concepts, forms, temperament of behavior, emotions that are not specific to each one. Then it is important to find what is the ritual that responds to our nature.
Emociones que no son propias a cada uno. Entonces, es importante encontrar cuál es ese ritual que responde a nuestra naturaleza.
We are accustomed, perhaps, to that basically through the religion, that the ritual. The liturgy of each of the religions are very general and are very untouchable, cannot be modified. Those are concepts for my way of seeing wrong, especially for a religion, that you have to talk about something as deep as your own spirit. Then, in the case of art, or in the case of someone, because in literally art, I am saying art, but for me, everything is art. Each person is an artist, and not even in power, is an artist, because in every action we do, if we put all our creativity and all our love and try to do our best, we are doing art in any activity that we can do daily.
Que podamos hacer diariamente. Entonces, en esos puntos, nosotros cuando encontramos o buscamos nuestro...
Then in those points, when we look for or find our ritual, for enter these states that favor us, we have to undoubtedly seek our own voice. We have to always look inward and recognize ourselves and see what it is that, but in adapt to our personality. The interesting thing for me and what I feel that I have done for an early age in my life path, since my journey has been that create for me in a spontaneous way, from that creativity capacity that we all have to find situations and give an answer different from the one that in principle is stipulated or expected from us, and by not giving the answer that is expected of us in creating a response from a ritual that comes out of that unconscious but very limited part, we find more freedom of creation, and it is more of us because we love the Shamatic culture. Many cosmovisions that I have seen are like the ritual that I have created from my power element, because they have a meaning for my internal, from my image, from everything that my vital path has been having a symbolism does not have the same value as I do it for an external ritual, for an external culture. It is a journey into a place that I still do not know, and when I think and create on that trip, I begin to know myself and recognize myself, to reveal myself. That is what drives me to start taking a brush or to take a camera, to climb a stage, to take my instrument, close my eyes, mount my protective frame, and be ethereal. And that trip is what takes me directly.
Ser etéreo. Y ese viaje es lo que me lleva directamente allí.
El arte ritual es como el momento en que necesito hablarme.
The ritual art is like the moment I need to speak to me. It is an inner language in which things arise from nothing or something that has happened to me. And it is a need to be able to talk to myself through paper and pencil. White and black can be color, plasticine, collage, there can be photos, there can be cuts, and that language later is in life, in what one does.
Puede ser un collage, pueden ser fotos, pueden ser recortes.
You go anywhere and you see a magazine. You look at it and it is talking to you, and that communication is talking all day long. It is communication with oneself, communication itself.
Con uno mismo, la propia comunicación.
De hecho, cuando el
In fact, when the myth does not recreate, the myth does not pass from folklore, the traditions that are made and that no one is aware of what he is doing is what he is doing, of what he does, where he does it, where he comes from. To understand folklore is the price of the loose puzzle, whose total configuration is the right. In that configuration, the image in turn has to reveal to us what myth is being spoken about. Perhaps the most penetrating example of the right of the West that arm all this together is the one we have at the end of the New Testament. When Christ says, "Do this in the commemoration of mine," he is saying this, that is a right. There are steps to be taken, the bread, the wine, in a certain order, but in commemoration of mine, says Christ. But configuring a myth, evoking a myth, the myth of Christ through that path, there we have a myth, a capital scene. It is a kind of DNA that allows us to quickly connect with the effectiveness of a ritual to generate a myth. Now, from there, the bread appears as an element that the boy are taught. At least it was like that long time ago. To kiss them if they are going to throw them away. To throw them away so they do not throw them away, because all is folklore. The boy, he is not aware of that, and there he is generating steps of a right to connect with Christ. There we clearly have that the right can be the way as the topology teaches. The same thing that unites separates. The right can be the path with which to connect with the myth or with which to rebound towards folklore. In the same way, folklore can be the point of entry through which to detect the myth and from the myth to reveal the myth. The myth is generated. It is the most difficult to locate, and if it is located, that the right has no power of initiation, has no power in whose generates it. It is a hollow matter. It becomes a habit, and the habit is the enemy in the initiatory cultures. The language of the subconscious, all that world that conditions us or could allow us to get what we want, is artistic. So art is the language of the subconscious. If I want to change something in me, and therefore I want to change my vision of the world and how I relate to the world and what I get or do not get from him, I need to be able to access that subconscious and tell him how I want things to be, reprogramming it as if it were a hard drive from a computer. Art is the tool that allows that. That's why art has been used in cultures for all times to affect the collective, the tribe. The king said what was real. The kings who painted a painting had the artist at their disposal. For the artist to paint the picture they wanted. They showed that it was real and that it was not real.
Una boda
A wedding at the traditional level has always served two things. One, to strengthen the relationship between husband and wife, between a couple who want to take a greater commitment. This, on the one hand, and then also serves the family to be able to get rid of the son that goes away from home. The ritual helps families to mourn the loss of the child, and this also happens with funerals. Funerals are a way to mourn the loss of a loved one, because if he dies, and already this and the other day continues. The same is like the person does not assimilate it well. Instead, I do this ritual, give it a form, give it time, do an extraordinary thing that makes a closure, that it died, closed, and life goes on. But if we do not, it seems that the mind does not finish assimilating it. Then there are many rituals that have this function of assimilating moments of great change in life. For me, life is a constant opportunity to create the ritual art without the need for a booklet of instructions, without the need for many endless courses that tell you how you have to do a ritual. Because if you do something that accompanies you during the right art, accompanies you doing the ritual art, that is, for teach you to connect to that creativity capacity of you to make that magic, to make that way to create yourself from those codes that are unique. They are unique they are unique if they are unique as I am going to make the recipe of another. We know that the instrument we use, hands, eyes, everything handles and moves energies. Painting and drawing is a way to capture on the material plane something that was in the abstract plane of abstraction, imagination, that is energy, and through the work of the artist goes to the material plane. Then in all these different rituals are generated. In my case, for example, the use of pencil and brushes is not far from the magic once used by magicians. In fact, I am very aware, since I use brushes and pencils, of the use there are. The hands are undoubtedly never terminals and very powerful energy terminals in our bodies, and eyes that seem to be, as first name, are objects, organs of perception. In reality, they become elements of transmission, of emission. Then when you are with the tip of the brush, with your hands oriented towards a specific point, and at that point in particular, it also has your sight, your eyes, that is the point of maximum rituality. And also, if you order your mind, because your mind are inside of the theme painting, something in particular that evokes you, because there you can be painting something you are disconnected from. But if you are painting something that involves you personally, spiritually, emotionally, that's when there is a greater concentration of energy. And it is when the ritual of art concretely manifests with greater power, and that I feel. That's what the artist feels. Now I am verbalizing it. Perhaps I have never done it before, for example, but it is not necessary to verbalize it, because the art precisely makes his art, because he feels things. Maybe then if he verbalizes them, he moves away from the essence, and the essence is the practice. Then the art is practical, who paints. That is why we are attracted to paint so much, because we express, because we materialize, because we ritualize. There is a nexus between the ritual and the sacred for many reasons, and we see it well. In fact, it is the sacred art in many areas. I also think that there is something quite interesting. René Girard, a philosopher whom I particularly appreciate, has highlighted the ambivalent nature of the sacred, in which the sacred has always been linked to a double movement, and at the same time a carrier of good luck or misfortune, being able to be positive or negative, and living always as something ambiguous, or rather ambivalent, as if there were no dualities in the yin-yang. That is, there is no longer black or white, is something that goes beyond this Aristotelian logical duality that we know.
Logique que l'on connaît habituellement.
I think the ritual is something similar, because how do we do it in certain forms of shamanisms to heal disease? So we simulate the disease, we go to meet the disease, we stage it, we dramatize it, that is, interpreting the role of disease, we start the healing process. It is almost homeopathic, that is, there is a ambivalence of the ritual very similar to the ambivalence that we discover in the sacred. It is extremely surprising, because we have the binary system to enter an analogic system. We are no longer in the analytical system where each thing is a function of another, but an analog system where things are similar but are not linked to logic or rational. They are in Renaissance because they vibrate together, and the fact of showing to bring out or dramatize, to stage suffering continuous, a gateway to heal, and the ambivalence, I think we find it both the sacred and the ritual.
Eh bien, est une porte d'accès à la guérison. Et cette ambivalence, on la retrouve aussi bien dans le sacré que dans le rituel, me semble-t-il.
When I am in the workshop, which for me is like a testing ground, what I do is try to respond to everything that in my life surpasses me. If, for example, I want to have something and I cannot have it, I paint it. It is a way of telling my subconscious that it's like a 3-year-old child, look there, you have it. We're going to create it. Let's enjoy it. We're going to have it here. It's a place, that internal part, a bit that until it's not there, it's going to stop, try to deviate in what we choose. On the other hand, it is also a way to recognize what you are and what you have, what is part of your life. Recognize the darkness and recognize the light. I make my students in the form of synthesis method, a painting that I do for 4 months. A painting about the lineage represents your lineage. Do not write anything else. Do not find out what happened with your great-grandmother, with your great-grandparents. That is very well, but image that you can solve everything in you that is not resolved in them. You do not heal your lineage, you heal yourself. But when you heal yourself, suddenly everything that is in you in conflict, you also deliver it to them. Well, if they want to receive it, the result is spectacular, because you are realizing that you do not know most of these people. You do not know their faces. I did not know my great-grandparents were. I had to ask my parents and start presenting them. My father came one day and stood half an hour standing in front of the painting. I could not believe I was seeing them. Not that they looked specifically, but I saw them. I felt them, and I began to put an element that was missing to create a unity of all that already recognized it. And my life began to change. In that moment, magically, things happened to me, because art is magical, because art touches the possibility that it is impossible until it is played. And it is no longer what happened, but what happens to you. When you begin to recognize what has value in your life, that which is part of you, because your life then begins to have more value. It is a journey to fear the blockage, which is the departure station and the first step of the madman, the warrior, with a lot of energy to distribute, but who does not know how, and throws these situations that he finds, that goes down or goes up. Simply he looks at them from afar, but he goes through them to his destination, which is a goal, which is a stage that is and ends from the beginning. But that journey from the first step to the last one after teaching the goal is the healing, and the healing I have created it. I have created, and therefore I programmed it, and I have programmed it, and I will continue programming it, reprogramming it, creating and recreating it with the two etymological meaning of the word that is to create, the word that is to recreate. Have fun and play. Play openly your arms without having obstacles around you, but being free. The power of ritual is nothing more and nothing less than to connect with a level that may be totally contrary to what we want. Unfortunate, unfavorable, or highly favorable for what we want. This is central. This is huge. Realizing that we can connect with the myths that situate us best for what we want to carry out in a situation in our life. That the rites connect us with the myths gives us a weapon, and that is the etymology of art. Art is a tool, a weapon to have the ability to do something. That weapon is the myth. The tool is developed with the art of the myth. The art in myth is a rite, and the rest you have to learn to do is to take awareness of the myth, the term of arming a framework, rite, myth, and art as the tool. When I want the myth for something more than just a set behavior, to be part of a pack, a mass, identify a place. When I want it for intuition with the right, I want to do something connecting with the correct myth. Choosing the myth from where I'm going to do something is choosing the result, that something, because every myth always has the same result and never another. So if the myth is set against us because unknowingly we start rituals where we get stuck in myths that do not, they are corresponding to what we want to achieve. The myth is set against us. But if we have the art to unite the correct myth for what I want to generate according to what the myth makes possible, or do not happen to be a tool, that's where art enters into use. The ritual art I use in everyday life to be in balance. To me, the ritual art balances me, puts me in my place before the human relationship, before the activity that I have to do, before the routine, before the day-to-day with my family, with my wife, with my children, allows me to be without regard to the element that I use in my hands, because I can be making an omelette or a cake, or I can be painting. I can be with a watercolor or with a tempera. In art, it flows the same. Many times I see structure in things that could be for garbage, in boxes, in caps, in bottles. I see forms. I allow myself, my unconscious, to see beyond what is a garbage or a residue. He sees beyond and makes me the call of attention. And in that call of attention is where I nurture, where I can apply that, bring it to the work. I can paste it. I can make a sculpture. I can make an adornment for me.
Lo puedo hacer un adorno para mí.
I do not believe in the trust of someone coming and telling you how you are, but helping you from your own way to make a wheel in which you see yourself. You see yourself because you already are, because nothing external seen as an obstacle truth or as a book of knowledge is going to take you to the place of what you are in internal. That moment to create your own form and empower yourself is something that is essential. To walk through life with the essence flowered and with a step in which your feet are on the ground and your body is upright to walk and show you from that freedom. What happens is that since we are born, we look for effectiveness outside with the mother, and there is a system that is offering us options and situations and methodologies for us to identify ourselves with the external. Then the heart understands the heart as a way of looking outside, and that distorts reality because we do not see our own heartbeat. We are used to looking for that force in the external. That turn is as if you look your heart and put it in external, and from there it could be handless. That is a brutal disempowerment. It's the gesture of putting it inside so that it is strong, and from that vibrate knowledge about you. Ritual art is the most artistic form of creation. It is every day, creates us, creates you from the language with yourself and your own strength, because when you are intuitive and pick up the code is when you can suddenly use that to create ritual.
Es cuando de repente puedes utilizar eso para crear un arte ritual.
The problem of art is that we limit it, and we believe that art is what art historians tell us. Art experts and everything that is museum that only a few can do, but all children do art. Everyone wants to paint. Mold, dance, sing, stories are invented. They are fascinated by everything. It is an etude. The creative etude we carry within us since we were born, and someone once told us that we were not from a moment good for that. Only the one who was really good and recognized that system that was good because he could do that. They have also sold us a life of self-destruction within the world of art, especially the last century and a half of 2 centuries. The artist itself destructs, cannot sustain creation, is a lost, neurotic. We in reality, the art well used is a tool to self-manage, to self-balance, but you have to know what art really means and what its power. And what is its power? We know rather the social function of the ritual, that is to say, the credible ritual, either in the religious sphere or even in the political sphere. The fact of celebrating an event every year in the same way, singing the same song, always with this idea of repetition. It is true that one of the functions of ritual is to create a bond, even among people who do not understand the meaning of the ritual. We know that all this is inscribed in the collective unconsciousness, and that we have completely lost the true origin of the ritual, as we have lost the origin of the myth, the origin of the legend.
Des légendes, bon. Donc il y a cette fonction de créer du lien, de maintenir du lien social à travers le rituel. Mais il y a aussi
There is thus this function of creating, of maintaining the social bond through ritual, as there is also an individual function that expresses in some way.
Conjuratoire, on pourrait presque dire. Moi, je me souviens d'une expérience rituelle que j'ai vécue il y a très longtemps.
I remember very well a ritual experience that I lived a long time ago. I was about 6 years old, I think. It was my first year of school, 6 years old, and I can visualize that memory very well. I was sitting at my desk, and I have a tiny eraser, and I'm convicted that I have to turn it around, spinning it, as if I was winding a watch to give me a kind of life credit again. And I tell myself that if I do not turn it around, I'm going to die to the rubber. 6 years already with these metaphysical experiences of the 6-year-old child, but we forget that 6-year-old child already have very powerful metaphysical experiences, and we must respect it and be aware of it. So I see myself very well in my little desk turning the clock to tell me I have to go back even more, because otherwise I will die if I do not. I think that this is incredible in the collective unconsciousness, which is something that belongs to the memory of human, and that we are all bearers, more or less, of this information that belongs to the whole universe. So the ritual makes the link between the individual and the collective, and allows the individual, the human being, to remember that belongs to humanity, and this is very important. Remember that we belong to humanity in a world where we sometimes forget it, where we consider certain humans as less than human, and when we consider certain humans more than humans.
Quand nous considérons certains humains comme plus que des humains.
Some are animals, slaves, people we can despise. Others are good, inaccessible people. No ritual allows us to remember that we belong to humanity.
Busquemos los rituales como instrumentos que nos sirven como camino.
Let's look for rituals as an instrument to serve us, as paths that inspire us, and inspire us with such a big word.
La inspiración es ese estado de hallazgo, de gozo máximo, de paz.
I think I would give it focus at this moment, and inspiration is that state of discovery, of maximum joy, of peace, at the same time disturbing us, but it is a very deep peace, and the point in which one connects with his creative part, with spirit. One feels more alive than ever, and at that point is the point in which one can observe the universe, can begin to perceive the greatness that has all this mystery that surrounds us continuously. That is the universe, that is to visit these realities, then the point of connection with all that is the state of inspiration.
Todo eso es el estado de inspiración.
There are rituals that serve to make a catharsis, to release an emotion that is repressed. There are rituals that serve to assimilate something that internally we cannot resist. Assimilate. There are rituals that we can serve to put peace in some conflict that we are living. In reality, the meaning of the ritual comes to be this: it is the acceptance of things just as they are.
Una ascensión
an extension inward, an inward outward that expels you creatively, outward that root that you do is inside, outward is.
Es una danza sana.
In all those forms of freedom, they give you information about yourself, your own instinct to play from that capacity, from the innate capacity to understand you, to understand your code, and look for solutions from you for you, with symbolism or without symbolism, but to play for you and for me. That is the path of empowerment back to oneself. To me, the ritual art helps me to recognize myself. It is like a recognition. It is like that breath that happens between the inspiration and the exhalation. It comes out and it turns to me. It comes out and it turns to me. The art is constantly giving back something that I am giving it, and it is the present moment, what I am living in this management of reality that is happening at every moment.
El juego de vaciarse de
The game of emptying yourself of the previous thing to feel something different is the game of the gods. Nobody tells the gods what is possible, what is impossible, what is necessary, or what is contingent. Sometimes it is achieved and sometimes not. Every time we empty ourselves of those limits that they tell us that is possible, that is impossible, that it is necessary, that it is contingent, we can generate what we want. That is where a path of divinity began, a sublime path. The first and fundamental is to learn to breathe, learn to tune into the rhythm of your heart and create your own time, and then understand that everything is possible if you choose it. Must remember that the error of learning that the process are necessary because the result is the result of that process. If we impose a result that we will eventually fall by its own weight, it is to return to the human and recognize that we have needs, that we have mistaken, and that will allows us to catch up. Where we look is the divinity. We look at perfection, but not so much to achieve it, but because that it is not north, is the mirror. It is the sun, it is the day, it is beauty, and it is the night in its depth. It is the inspiration that allows me and encourages me to continue having the illusion to live.